Hey y'all, I'm Bailey Lavender, and I am your YouTube big sister, and I'm actually here today with my little sister, Megan Bray, or Ayers, I guess, because I guess you're now married. Anyways, I want to dive into what it's like being a parent who's lost a parent. My sister, unfortunately, has lost a parent when she was younger, and I want to dive in what that is like with her having 3 littles now, and what it's like having to go through that and being a parent now. So, how old were you when you lost your parent?
I was 19, almost 20. Yeah.
And that is a very influential time for kids turning into an adult. What was that like, and how did that affect you?
It was rough. I'm very angry, but my now husband, we've been together for almost 11 years, so he guided me through a lot of that, but it was rough.
And then how long after did you decide to start having kids?
We started having kids in 2020, and he passed away in 2015, so about 5 years.
Does losing your parent affect how you parent now?
Yes, because I try to think of it as you're never guaranteed tomorrow. Like, my dad was really young. He was 41 when he passed away. I always try to keep in the back of my mind, like, we're never guaranteed tomorrow. And while at times I'm still human, I try my best to be more compassionate and show my kids a lot more love and be present with them as much as I can.
Do you do anything special to celebrate him in any way?
We sometimes will get like a cake and celebrate like his birthday. Like this past year, we went to Carowinds on his birthday. We took the day off work and went to Carowinds and just kind of try to keep it out of my mind in a way and stay busy. And then on Father's Day, we try to surround ourselves with family and loved ones and stuff like that.
When you are approaching the bad day, is what we'll call it, do you notice your mental health being affected even without you realizing you're getting close to that day?
Yes.
And how does that affect your day-to-day life?
It affects my day-to-day life every single day, pretty much, because I always been a daddy's girl, and I've always just been so anytime anything's wrong, I always just want to pick up the phone and just call him and tell him what's wrong or what's happened, or thinking that my dad did not walk me down the aisle. He wasn't there for any of my children being born, my engagement, anything is really rough.
Have you had any traditions or things that you did with your dad that you now do with your kids in honor of him?
Not really traditions, but I do I catch myself doing these little things. It's just little things that I can think of that I catch myself doing with my kids. It's not really anything big, but I always think my dad used to do this with me, or me and my dad used to joke around like this, or play with each other like that, that just always gets me.
What is if you want to share, what is your favorite memory of him?
His laugh was just, I replay it in my head. I mean, even though it's been
still remember it?
That it's been almost 10 years, I can still remember it. Yeah.
Now, my mother lost her mother, and she says that she regularly can pass by someone and smell her perfume and stuff, and it almost still this day takes her to her knees at times. How is that for you when you have those little glimpses or little moments of that was who he was?
It really is rough, but it happens often for me. Or if I see somebody that has similarities of the person's build or hair or the way they talk or the way they smell, it does 100% take me back, and it's hard.
Yeah. I can't imagine going through anything like that. So it has absolutely amazed me watching Megan parent and grow with her children, and it truly is inspiring watching you do that, because I can't imagine going through life like that.
Yeah.
And it's something that I am amazed by you with every single day. Do you think losing your dad at a young age influenced your career?
Not really, because I had already started on my career path before he had passed away. But like I always try to be in the moment with my clients, and
Speak of the one of the little babies.
I try to be in the moment when it comes to giving advice to my clients, or pretty much like, obviously as hairstylists, we are counselors in itself. And I try to give not advice that I wish, like when it comes to parents, or like if I have a young client that is having a hard time with their relationship with their parents, trying to tell them that you're not promised tomorrow, and what I would give to have that relationship back with my parents. And there was a period of time where my father and I weren't on the best of terms, and about 4 to 5 months before he passed away, we admitted our relationship, and then he just like suddenly passed away. It wasn't something that was expected. Obviously, he was only 41. So I always try to give advice that I wish I would have taken myself. Just be as real as I can.
So what coping mechanisms or tactics or things did you do in the midst of losing your dad that were helpful, were not helpful? You would give advice to change or do differently or keep. What were the different things that you did?
So a lot of things that I did that kind of helped me get through, and still do, is I wear his my dad was a bigger man, so I wear his shirts to bed. I still have all of his belongings. I never got rid of anything. So I have little things around my house that just keep me, reminded of him, and give me these just when I glance at it, I just it's in the back of my mind all the time, which it always is, but just gives me that little smile.
Was there anything that you did, not that you regret, but that you were that might not have been the healthiest way of coping?
Well, I mean, there was, especially right when it happened, even a couple years after, when it came close to the death date, I would just keep myself cooped up in my room, or didn't want to be around anybody. And especially on Father's Day, it made me bitter to see people post on Facebook or any kind of social media about their father. And I was so pissed off as to why God took my father and not somebody else's, because I felt like I was selfish, and I felt like I deserved mine more than somebody else should. And so that was really hard.
I feel like that is a normal feeling, going through that of how do I deal with this? Why this person? Why not someone else?
Yeah.
And was this the correct time? And of course you're going to question everything like that.
Yes.
Now, did you get therapy through all of that? Have you ever had therapy?
Well, I mean, yes, but not for that reason. Yeah.
If someone else was going through this that you're close with, what would you recommend?
I would 100% recommend having a relationship with God, and not keeping it all bottled in, talking to somebody, whether it's a friend or family member, a counselor, anybody, even your hairdresser. Just talking to somebody about it. Do not keep it bottled up, because it will eat away at you, for sure.
Do you feel like, now, Megan only has lost one of her parents. Do you feel like after losing your father, did it change your relationship, good or bad, with your other parent, with your mom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I know it's crazy to say, but I always keep in the back of my mind, it could always be tomorrow. My mom, she's 45. And I always think to myself, what if she gets in the car right now and gets in an accident? I'm not going to have anybody. So yeah, that's pretty rough pretty rough.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know that could happen to anybody, but to know that, I no longer have two, that I only have one left, that's really hard.
And your dad's side of the family, they don't live here.
Yeah.
They live away as well. Do you stay in contact with them?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How has that relationship been since losing him? Did it get stronger?
Yeah.
Or was it difficult?
No, it's stronger. I feel like that's my piece of him, which obviously they're a piece of me because they're my family too, but my grandmother somewhat is not really like my father, but I know that that's her son, and we kind of feel like we share the same loss, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely does. I mean, I can't imagine being in either one of your spots, right? Losing a parent or losing a child. Neither
Yes.
one is ever fun, and neither one is ever expected, especially since it was sudden.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm sure y'all bonded and got closer during that process,
Yes, absolutely.
even though as horrific as it probably was for you,
Yes.
in not wanting to have to bond over something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you will ever tell your kids what happened, or do you think you'll ever tell your kids about him? Do they know about him?
My girls do. Obviously, he's not
Right.
old enough to understand, but my girls do understand that he's went to be with, Jesus, and that he's in heaven, and that he's no longer suffering or in pain. But they don't know like what has happened or anything like that. But yeah, they do know.
At what age did they start asking those questions?
They never really asked because obviously we share the same,
Mm-hmm.
like your dad is my stepdad, so they've always kind of put him as my dad.
Mm.
And so they never really asked until like they went through my phone and seen pictures, and I've talked about him and they know from that. But that's
How was that, as you as a parent, describing or explaining that?
it was rough.
Like explaining that the grandfather that you think is my dad is actually my stepdad, and my dad is no longer here.
It was rough. It really was rough.
I'm sure that was very confusing for them and you
Yeah.
to try to explain.
I mean, my kids, like, if we've had a pet that has went to heaven and my kids have, why are they going to heaven? So it's hard enough to explain to a 3 and a 4-year-old that, so I can only imagine, like, they don't understand why, but they know that, when you go to heaven, you're made new and stuff like that, so.
So has having your stepdad, my dad, be a part of your life even before your dad's passing, be around during that process, did that make it more difficult or easier, or neither way would have made a difference?
In a way, maybe did make a little bit of a difference, but at the same time, it was almost like, I wouldn't really say a resentment, but it was almost like, it was hard for me because, like, knowing he's obviously not my real dad,
Right.
like having that and knowing he's there, that he is a father figure, but he's not my dad, that's still hard.
Right.
But he still comforted me like my father would have. So it was a little bit, it wasn't hard, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, you still lost your dad.
Yeah.
And just because my dad was there doesn't take that away.
Yes.
It doesn't take that pain away. It doesn't make it easier, because he nor I ever will be, or hopefully no time soon, will know what that feels like.
Yes. I don't wish it on my worst enemy.
So our family dynamic is a little weird. Her mom married my dad, and me and my brother both have the same dad, and her brother both have the same mom. So when you lost your dad, your brother did not also go through that.
No.
How was it going through that without a sibling to fully understand? Like, because of course your brother was, no questions asked, there for you, because you guys have a great relationship, but how was that not experiencing it with someone going through? Because I know when I've lost people, having that other people experience that same pain. Not it being helpful, because that's a horrible way of looking at it, but we understood each other.
Yeah.
Did that make you feel alone, or was that helpful by not having to support someone else in that? What was that like for you?
So it was really hard, especially when I was the one that had to plan the funeral, the organ donation, everything that happened with my dad afterwards. I had to do it all by myself because he had no other children and he was never married. So I was the one that was responsible, even at the young age of 19, for everything.
Wow,
So,
I didn't know you had to do all of that. So, at 19 years old, planning a funeral, what did that look like?
It was real.
Like,
was
so
really
you
rough.
go in, and do they have everything laid out for you to pick and choose from?
So in the hospital, after he had passed away, they had like a sheet pretty much, and I can't remember. I think it's called Donor Life or Life Donor or something like that. Comes in and they have a sheet, and you pretty much just check off anything from skin to your eyeballs to your organs and anything that you can think of. You just check what you would like to be donated, and if it can be donated, it will be donated. And I donated everything of his except for his skin, just because like my dad had a lot of tattoos, so that was like part of him that I felt like I didn't want anybody else to have.
Yeah.
And so that was the only thing that he had that I didn't have donated. To do that was hard, very hard. But in a way, it made me feel good because I knew that I was also saving a life and helping, even these kids or these older people have one more day with their parents or their grandparents or their kids, or, that made me feel a lot better about the situation, knowing that, it wasn't wasted. So.
Have you ever met anybody that
I have
received-
letters from
Really?
people.
And how was receiving that? Like, I'm getting emotional, like, thinking about that. How was that for you?
It was very nerve-wracking because you don't know, like, if they get a life-saving kidney or like a pancreas or something of that sort that's keeping them alive, if one letter you're gonna get from them is like, yeah, I'm doing good, and then the next letter that you get that the organ wasn't a match for them and that they passed away. So that was like, it was very nerve-wracking, and honestly, I would get letters and that sometimes I wouldn't even open them or wouldn't even have the courage to open them because I'm scared, like, what if it didn't work, or what if they passed away, and that would, like, my mental health, what I felt, would have went right back to square one. So that was difficult.
So, you were 19 years old, and you were having to make extremely difficult decisions with planning a funeral, with donating organs, and going through all of this barely as an adult. Legally, you're an adult, but in all reality, at 19 years old, who is technically really an adult?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
My grandmother, she helped me through a lot. She held my hand. Of course, like, I was the one that made the call on everything, but she was, we both were just like guided each other through a lot of it. And, even everything at the funeral home, like, was just like picking out, like, if he was going to be buried or cremated, or, the urns and who got the ashes and all that stuff. It was hard. It was really hard.
And do you mind sharing what you decided to do?
We decided to cremate.
And how did y'all keep it? Did y'all disperse?
No, I still have them. They're actually in my living room and right up there.
I didn't know if you were okay with telling, but I did.
Yeah, so I have the big urn that has all of them, and then my grandmother, my aunt, and my uncle all had these like little mini urns. The good thing about that, whenever you lose like a loved one or something, like at the hospital that my dad had passed away at, they gave me all these like things, like they let me cut his hair, so I have some of his hair, I have fingerprints, I have his handprint in a mold, I have like certificate of life and like a medal to know that I saved a life, well, that he saved a life by donating. So I have all that and in remembrance of him too. And then obviously when my kids get old enough, I'll show them that. But
That's huge.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, because I reflect back to when I was 19, 20 years old and where I was mentally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how you had to pick yourself up in this horrible situation and say, I have to be strong and make the best decision for himself and all these other people that I may never meet, and hopefully it changes their life. That's huge. Do you ever sit back and reflect on how that may have affected who you are now, of like having to make those huge decisions? Or do you try to suppress that?
I do try to suppress it in somewhat of a way, because I feel like if I do think about it too much, it does like put me down. Obviously, when people tell you, "Oh, you're so strong to have done this at, so and so age," you're like, I had to.
You had no other choice.
Yeah, I had no other choice. But I know it has changed who I am today, because there are things that have happened in my life since. Obviously, it's been almost 10 years that have happened since then that I think to myself, I've done this before, like I can do it again, or at least I would know, like in this situation. Or I've had friends that have even lost a parent or a grandparent that has been like their parent, and I somewhat can feel what they feel, and it's like a hurt, like that everybody says, oh, you kind of get past it. You never really get past it. You get used to the pain. So that is one thing that it comes in waves. It really does.
I remember, and of course it's not the same,
Yeah.
but I remember, you remember how close I was to my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
I remember after I lost my grandfather, simply being in Walmart and went to go pick up the phone to call him because it was a moment of forgetfulness. Mm-hmm. And I literally was in the motion of dialing his number, and it hit me out of nowhere. And it was one of those moments that the waves that you're talking about, they come unexpectedly, and it still hits me today, and I'm sure it still hits you.
Yep.
Now, I'm sure, unfortunately, there is someone out in this world who is 19, 20 years old, who's lost a mom or a dad, who is a only child of that parent, who is having to make these big kid decisions just like you.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere.
And it's not something I would wish on my worst memory or worst enemy.
What do you want them to know?
Even if you do feel like you are alone in the situation, you're not. Someone somewhere has been in the same position or has had something equally happen. Like, I know that you feel in the moment that your whole world is crumbling and you don't know how you'll make it to tomorrow. Tomorrow is always there. And that your parent would want you to see the rest of your life. Like, don't let it stop. Don't let this stop you. From living. Because I know my dad, obviously, me being his only child, and a daddy's girl at that, just knowing if I let that hinder me and take my own life or do something to that sort to end my life, to end the pain that I felt like was going to last forever, it would kill him.
All over again.
Yeah.
Well, I can't imagine being a parent now, right? And of course yours are little.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 beautiful little ones.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope and pray that nothing ever happens to you or your husband, right? But as a parent now, I'm sure that affects your future plans with them,
Yes.
of making sure you spend that extra time with them and allow them to have those extra memories. And even on the days that you're like, you're driving me insane, wrap them in love, or someone
Yes.
who's not been through what you've experienced may take those days for granted.
Yes.
So I'm sure just simply going through the experience that you have, that sometime in life you will change someone else's life by not feeling alone, even though you went through a horrible situation.
Yep.
Do you look back and say, I am proud of 19-year-old Megan and how she handled it?
Yes, absolutely. Every single day, I look back and say, I don't know how I made it, but I did.
Because at 19 years old, I was partying. I was
Yeah.
having fun. I was enjoying life and was carefree, not giving a dang about nothing other than, is there gas in my car? Am I having fun? And are my grades okay?
Yep.
Because we were in cosmetology school together.
Yep.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
That was all I cared about. But you instead are planning a funeral, donating organs, coping with your own mental health, supporting the family members around you that were also going through it.
Yep.
That's massive. As horrible as it was. Would you change anything within that time, other than, of course, the obvious?
I don't wish that I changed anything because obviously it happened for a reason. Like everything happens for a reason, even though sometimes we don't feel like it does. But it made me who I am today and made me appreciate things more. And I worry about my kids going through the same pain as far as like my husband leaving for work and not coming home. Fear of, I could literally leave my house right now and get in a car accident and my kids would not have me anymore. So I do constantly think about things like that. And obviously if I had never lost a parent, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to die until I'm like 90 years old.
You brought up a good point. We've talked about you being a parent, but how did that at the time affect your relationship with your now husband?
He has, we've been together since, I found out that he passed away. So he has been with me through a lot. It made our relationship a lot stronger. And at the time, we had only been dating for a little over a year when he had passed away. So it was real fresh. And
Did you allow yourself to lean on him at the time?
yes and no. Like, I was bitter because like he would try to console me or, be there for me. And I would say, you don't understand, which you don't expect anybody to feel what you feel. Even if somebody has went through the same things as you don't expect them to resonate with you or understand to the T.
And you never want them
No,
to.
you don't.
But has it affected your marriage? Because at the time they were just dating. I remember when y'all first started dating, like it's been forever now. I feel like there's not been a time they all haven't been together, it seems like. But has it affected how y'all parent as a couple and not just who you are as a parent? Does he do anything differently to help you?
He just knows, like, when the days roll around that I'm not having a good day. Like, I don't even have to tell him. He just knows. And he's like, your mom doesn't feel good today, or, she's having a bad day, she's having a hard day. He tries to, as far as that goes.
He tries to help
Yeah.
best he can.
Yeah.
Do you allow him in more now?
Yeah, I do. Because he understands, like, he knows it's obviously not easy, and he understood then, but he has both of his parents, and obviously I don't feel like he doesn't understand what it's like. He knows that I hurt, but That's
Does
the
that,
extent to it.
sorry, it makes you more fearful going through this loss with your dad for your future with your kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it affect your marriage, as in you get more scared of losing him, losing
Yes.
that backbone, of how when he leaves the house you get more fearful if he doesn't answer the phone, you get more fearful? How has that changed since losing him?
It's a lot. It's changed a lot. So, you know, obviously we take a lot of things for granted and until we lose it. And whenever I did lose him, it's like everything changed. Like, you know, if somebody doesn't answer the phone, even if it's just my mom or my husband or anybody, I call back again. I'll just continue to call. And they're like, is something wrong? I'm like, no, I'm just making sure something's not wrong with you. And they'll be like busy and just can't get to the phone, but I'll call like 10 times just to make sure.
That makes so much more sense of why you like to have people's location.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always thought it was just because you were crazy, because I didn't take the time to think about it, because
Yeah.
that was me just not taking my own,
Seeing it past your own nose.
seeing past my own nose, like
Yeah.
thinking about what you've experienced. And because I never had the opportunity of meeting your father.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I forget how that may have affected you. And now that makes so much more sense of why little things like that matter so much to you. When the girls get just slightly too far away from you, or where Cameron's not answering his phone, or how you go from 0 to 100 because you've heard a loud boom or whatever it may be, where someone else, of course, would panic, but you may panic a little bit more.
Yep.
So, my mother, she lost her mother when I was very young. And something that she's dealt with is the fact that she's an only child. And she had my brother and I. Do you think that's why you have always wanted such a big family, is so that your kids never have to go through what you went through alone?
Yes. Yes. Because, like you said, my brother, obviously, he's my half brother. I don't have any full siblings. So, sharing that with somebody would have been a little bit easier, obviously. Because at the time, even my brother was in the military. And so he was in boot camp, and we were supposed to be going to his, you know, graduation from boot camp. And I couldn't even go because my dad had passed away. So I wasn't able to celebrate him, which, you know, obviously he understood, but that was rough. But I think it would have, you know, eased the pain in that sense, knowing that I did have someone from him that I could share that bond with. But, you know, at the same time, I don't wish that on anybody. So I'm kind of glad that I only had to experience that myself versus, you know, 2 or 3 siblings, and, you know, we all have to, you know, go through that.
Yeah, because I thankfully have siblings from both of my parents, right? So I will be able to have that ability whenever, sadly, the day may come, to lean on someone to help say, if we're donating, this is what we're comfortable with together, and being able to talk about those things together. And so I can only imagine now why when you say, I'm good at 3, maybe not, maybe 4, it may have, of course you love having a big family, but there might be some underlying things within that as well.
Yeah.
That makes so much more sense. Eventually one day, we pray that you pass before your children. Right, you never want to bury a child, right? That's a different topic that we never want to get into.
Yeah.
Are you planning on helping your children learn coping mechanisms for that whenever it happens, when they're grown and y'all have grandkids together and you are expected to eventually pass, how to cope with the loss of you or your husband? Or do you plan on just allowing them to deal with that the way that they see fit?
Well, obviously, they'll have somebody else to lean on because I have 3 kids, 2 girls and 1 boy. So I feel like they will, you know, have each other. I don't feel like you can ever prepare for that loss. And it's honestly hard to I feel like would be hard to prepare somebody else for that loss.
From the outside looking in, I see what you're doing by celebrating birthdays and
Yeah.
things like that is teaching them of just because someone's gone doesn't mean their memory is gone, right?
Yes.
And going to a fun park, celebrating with a birthday cake, and remembering that. And even though they may not remember, and just because your husband may not remember doesn't mean that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's beautiful, that you're showing them that they forever can still do that no matter what.
Absolutely.
I think that that is one of the most beautiful things I think you've said today.
And then, you know, a lot of times, like, on my dad's birthday or on, like, the death anniversary, my mom would send me flowers or, you know, do something like that where, you know, it was just like a little reminder.
Does that help by
Yeah.
having that reminder?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because, of course, some people, they prefer not to remember. They want to
Yeah.
completely ignore it. And then some people want to have that acknowledgement.
And at first, I feel like it was more than less, like, didn't want to have any remembrance, like, even when songs from his, like, funeral would come on the radio, I would just, it's like everything just flashed back and flooded back, and it was like, I hated it. But throughout the years, it's gotten obviously a lot better. I mean, it's been almost 10 years, it's just kind of like, it's still there, the pain's still there, but it's more of a numb feeling.
Thank you so much for being willing to talk about this. I know it was probably very difficult and hard to rehash those emotions. And I know that somebody out there is probably really thankful that you allowed us to dive into this. I love you. I hope you have a great day. Let me know what you want to learn about next. Any topic is on the table. I love you. Bye, y'all.
Even dead dads.